Another race, another missed opportunity for Ferrari. What could have been a double podium finish turned into a disappointing P8 and P10. A weekend full of potential slipped away due to poor decisions and mistimed calls. But what really caught everyone's attention was what Hamilton and Leclerc had to say after the race. Their words raised a crucial question. Does Ferrari need a serious cultural shift within the team? And more importantly, can Hamilton's presence bring about that change? However, Ferrari's struggles aren't just about their own mistakes. McLaren's dominant pace and Verstappen's sheer brilliance have created an even bigger challenge. Melbourne made it crystal clear. When it comes to decision-making under pressure, Ferrari still lags behind. In the final laps, both McLaren drivers ran wide, prompting Norris to pit immediately. This was Ferrari's golden chance to react, but instead, they chose to stay out. Even when Max dived into the pits, it wasn't enough to convince them to change their strategy. To make matters worse, the communication within the team was completely out of sync. Hamilton and Leclerc received different information from their engineers, leading to even more confusion. While Hamilton was assured that the rain would stop soon, Leclerc was told to expect heavy showers that would make it impossible to survive on slick tires. This lack of coordination cost Ferrari dearly, proving once again that strategy execution remains a major weakness. This kind of miscommunication is exactly what separates championship-winning teams from those that struggle. The frustration was evident, especially from Hamilton, who voiced his disbelief over the radio. Under the safety car conditions caused by Alonso, Hamilton exited the pit lane and, in a rare moment of frustration, even used language that could land him in trouble with the FIA. Though he later apologized, it was clear that he hadn't realized his radio was still on. After the race, Hamilton didn't hold back his disappointment. He expected much more from a car that was supposedly built to perform well in damp conditions. Speaking to the media, he admitted, "The race was a lot tougher than I thought. The car was incredibly difficult to drive. And honestly, I'm just grateful I managed to keep it out of the wall." There's a lot to take in, especially when adapting to a new power unit in tricky conditions. It requires a completely different approach: driving style, steering settings, everything. At one point, Hamilton even led the race. But the real issue wasn't just his driving. It was the lack of clear guidance about the incoming rain. He later admitted, "I stayed out as long as I could, but we simply missed the right call. I wasn't given the right information on how much more rain was coming." This moment highlighted one of the biggest problems Ferrari has faced for years: inconsistency in decision-making. Another striking moment came when Hamilton struggled to overtake Albon for a long stretch of the race. It wasn't until he was reminded to use the K1 button that he realized he still had extra power at his disposal. His frustrated response to his race engineer showed that he is still in the process of fully understanding the car. F1 experts believe that fine-tuning this driver-engineer communication will be a major priority moving forward. But the biggest disappointment wasn't just Hamilton's struggle with the car. It was the incorrect weather prediction that ruined his race strategy. He had no say in the decision-making, and by the time he realized what was happening, it was too late. After the race, Hamilton took a long pause before responding to his race engineer, Riccardo Adami, almost as if he was reflecting on the frustrating moments he had just endured. It reminded many of the difficult seasons he experienced at Mercedes in recent years. When asked about the race, Hamilton's response was brief but telling. "Yeah, it wasn't great, but we keep pushing." However, his frustration had already been clear over the radio when he directly questioned Adami about the incorrect weather information. "I thought you said it wasn't going to rain much. We lost a big opportunity there." Adami's only response? "Understood." A cold and disappointing reply for a 7-time world champion who spent most of the race stuck behind a Williams-Ferrari season has started on the wrong foot. And while Hamilton is still adjusting to the car, the bigger issue seems to be the strategy department. Communication breakdowns and slow decision-making have cost the team valuable points. P8 and P10 are not the results a championship contender should be settling for. What's even more surprising is that Hamilton publicly admitted he was given incorrect information. Many fans saw this as a bold move, highlighting the issues within the team. While he took responsibility for his own learning curve, he also made it clear that the race engineers played a role in the disastrous outcome. Hamilton wasn't the only one frustrated after the race. Leclerc also voiced his disappointment, calling the Melbourne Grand Prix a missed opportunity. He explained, "In these kinds of conditions, where the race is unpredictable, you have to make the right calls and take advantage of every chance to score points. We didn't do that today." He admitted that his own mistake at turn 11 cost him 4 positions, putting him on the back foot. But beyond that, the team's poor strategy calls meant that even a small error turned into a huge setback. If you look at the guys who finished 3rd and 4th, that could have been us. But once you fall behind, everything becomes much harder. Another bizarre moment came when Leclerc told his engineer that his seat was full of water. Instead of getting a proper response, he was simply told that it was probably from the rain outside. A small moment, but one that summed up the overall lack of attention to detail within the team. Ferrari had openly admitted before the weekend that they made certain compromises in qualifying to be stronger in the race. But when it mattered most, they were still far off the pace. Not only were McLaren and Red Bull significantly quicker, but even Mercedes seemed to have better race pace. In fact, based on Hamilton's struggles, Ferrari might have been slower than the Racing Bulls, and even Williams at certain points. Leclerc summed it up best when he said, "We were nowhere near McLaren and Max today. We were close to Mercedes, but that was it. McLaren and Red Bull were just much faster. We need to figure out what went wrong because this was not the performance we expected." Ferrari's biggest weakness wasn't just their lack of race pace. It was the confusion and miscommunication within their own pit wall. In a season where competition has reached another level, they simply can't afford mistakes like these. McLaren is showing incredible form, and Verstappen remains an unstoppable force. If Ferrari keeps making strategic errors, they will fall even further behind. Another factor Ferrari can't rely on is inconsistent performances from their rivals. They can't always expect Lawson or Antonelli to struggle in qualifying. At some point, they need to step up and take control of their own destiny, rather than hoping for external factors to work in their favor. This brings us to the key question. Can Hamilton actually change the culture at Ferrari? The team had at least one podium finish within reach before their poor strategy decisions ruined everything. Even though Leclerc admitted his own mistake, the real damage was done long before that. If Ferrari wants to truly compete for race wins and championships, they must improve their communication and decision-making. A driver needs to trust their engineer completely, and right now, that trust is lacking. So far, it's clear that Ferrari still has a lot to learn. The mistakes in Melbourne exposed serious weaknesses in how the team operates under pressure. But what do you think? Will Hamilton be able to transform Ferrari's approach, or will these issues continue to haunt them? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more about Lawson's terrible debut and why it put him in a difficult position from the start of the season, check out the video on your screen right now. Ferrari's struggles in Melbourne serve as a harsh reminder that raw speed alone won't win championships. Strategy, communication, and trust between drivers and engineers are just as crucial. Right now, that trust seems to be missing. Hamilton's arrival was supposed to bring a fresh perspective, but if the team doesn't improve their internal decision-making, even a 7-time world champion won't be able to turn things around. The question remains: will Ferrari learn from this disaster, or are they doomed to repeat the same mistakes? Their fans have endured years of heartbreak, and patience is running thin. With McLaren's rise and Red Bull's dominance, Ferrari can't afford to be a step behind anymore. Hamilton's move to Ferrari was one of the biggest stories in F1 history. But now, the real work begins. Can he help reshape the team's mentality? Or will he find himself in the same frustrating situation that led to his departure from Mercedes? Only time will tell. What are your thoughts on Ferrari's performance? Can Hamilton change the team's culture? Or is this just the beginning of another difficult season? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more about the key moments that shaped this chaotic race, check out the video on your screen right now.